Can you guys hear me? Okay, awesome. So thank you so much for that introduction. Basically just means I've worked in a SOC for a really long time, and I did everything at one point, which I'm sure everybody here has done. So I'm Melissa, and I go by Mel, so feel free to call me that. And today I'm going to be talking about IBM's keys for data security success. And basically what that means is how we talk to our customers about implementing data security successfully. So first off, we ask our customers what is the most important thing to their organization. And a lot of times we get a variety of responses, like humans are extremely important to our organization. Crown jewels are very important to our organization, assets. But really we'd like to point out that at the baseline of all those things is the data that they contain, what the crown jewels hold, what information these humans have access to. So here we have our data. And the next thing we like to talk about is where is this data? Where does it reside? And we get a variety of answers here, It's in the mainframe, it's on the cloud, it's on-prem, it's in an AI model somewhere, And we like to call this distributed data, just a blanket generic term, that this is distributed data. And one of the challenges we see is helping organizations secure a distributed set of data across multiple different types of infrastructure. And so the next problem, or not problem, but question we kind of ask is, who has access to this data? Who needs access to this data? And that answer usually falls in three groups of people, and that they are customers, employees, and third parties. And when I'm talking about third parties, I mean your vendors, your consultancy companies, your contractors, anybody outside of your organization. And we like to call all these people users of privilege. I think you can also say privileged users as well, whatever floats your boat. And these users of privilege are the biggest threat to your organization. They pose the biggest vulnerability. I think everybody understands here that humans are the weakest link in the cybersecurity chain. And just to pull a statistic from Microsoft, of all people, from their digital defense report, they stated that last year, 82% of data breaches occurred from users of privilege. And so these are the biggest targets for threat actors, and even as penetration testers, you're targeting employees, customers, and also your third parties. And so when we are traditionally defending against threat actors, we deploy a lot of what we like to call perimeter security. Your SIEMs, your SOARs, your EDRs, your firewalls, and that's all great stuff. Trust me, I know it's great. I've worked on those kinds of applications for many years. However, as a threat actor, why would they need to break down the door when they just have the keys to the back? And what I mean by that is by using stolen credentials of any of these users of privilege. And these stolen credentials are not just being found by phishing these employees, because obviously we know phishing is one of the largest threat vectors to gather stolen credentials. But we can just go on the open web, or even we can call it the dark web if you want, to buy stolen credentials, and then in turn access these organizations without even triggering any use cases that have been deployed from these traditional perimeter security solutions. And so the reason that threat actors are targeting our organizations is because data is profitable. They can make money off of it, they can make money selling it, they can also make money off you by ransoming you to get your data back, if you believe you'll get your data back. And so we put out a cost of a data breach report every year, and this year, from 2024, we've estimated that the average cost of a data breach is $4.88 million, and that's in USD, so you can do the conversion in your head, how much that is in Canadian, and the dollar's not good right now. And another statistic we put out as well was we found that 77% of data breaches started with stolen credentials. Now, this is not unbeknownst to everybody in this room. We all know that. And so these are challenges that we see when we talk to our clients about data security. How are we protecting these users of privilege against these threat actors beyond traditional perimeter security? How are we protecting and securing distributed data across multiple infrastructures? And so from the IBM perspective, we've kind of sectioned how to solve this problem in three different ways. So our first one here is data security posture management, governance, and data detection and response. So going off to our first one here on the left-hand side, data security posture management. Now, posture management is I want to say one of the new buzzwords in the industry nowadays. There's application security posture management, cloud security posture management, and I'm here talking about data security posture management. But what it truly is to give you a unified viewpoint of where all of your distributed data is and how secure it is. And the one thing that, if you take anything out of this presentation, the one thing that is the most important about protecting your data is visibility. You need to be able to see where all of your data is in your organization, not just where you think your data is. When we surveyed our clients, we found that they were only able to identify 70% of the data within their organization. It's not great. It's good to protect the known knowns, but you need to also understand the unknown unknowns, because if you can't see it, the threat actor may be able to. But visibility is only white noise without context. You need to be able to see all the data, but also understand what data is the most important from what you can see. And so to understand this, we like to use this metaphor of a mountain on the top left-hand side here. Think of your organization as a mountain. And most organizations have anywhere between, on average, 300 to 500 applications across the board. Not just security, just everything that makes your organization work. And so if I'm trying to figure out, if I'm prepping for a SOX compliance audit, and I'm trying to find all the financial information and how it's protected in my organization, I'm traditionally gonna go mine this mountain in the areas where I know there is gold, where I know there is financial information. I'm gonna check out, maybe my SAP applications. I'm gonna check out my Salesforce applications. I'm gonna check out Workday, if anything. Just a few examples, However, I can't physically do that for 300 to 500 applications. It's not possible, and I do not have a team of 50 analysts to help me, and I can't ask people to do that. And so I'm only getting about 70% of the information that I know is there. And so before we go and just keep digging through this mountain to find all this information that we find the 70%, we need to look at a different approach. And so in IBM, we've thought of this a little differently. And so we take what we like to call the prospecting approach. And what we do is we probe into every single one of your applications to find the type of data that you're looking for. So I'm probing into all my applications to find a set of financial data, credit cards, PIN numbers, whatever you're looking for. Sorry. And when we do this, we're able to then distinguish where the deposits of gold are, where those actual deposits of gold are. Because if I think all the information I'm looking for is in Workday, and I'm not seeing all of the other ones in SAP, I can't see that extra 30% of what we call shadow data that I'm missing. And so going off to our next use case of how posture management really does help organizations, we're able to tell people that we can provide you with 100% accuracy to identify unstructured data and 98% accuracy for structured data. And before you roll your eyes at all those numbers, we actually contracted a third-party agency to test our claims. And they were able to confirm our statistics of how accurate we were able to identify this type of data. And they published a white paper on using our DSPM product. And if you are curious about that white paper, I can show you it later, but it's too large for this presentation. So now we have visibility with context with 100%, near 100% accuracy. That's wonderful. And so how are we going to use this? And so another use case we talk to clients about is data movement. And this specifically has to talk is about data residency. And this is a very important topic, especially to a lot of Canadian organizations, because we have strict data residency requirements. And a lot of cloud providers and SaaS providers do not actually have instances to host solutions in Canada. And so we are contracting out of the US. And so that's great if you can do that, if you're allowed to do that, that's awesome. However, we need to also understand what data is being sent across the border, and if you are in compliance and you also have good controls on that data that is potentially moving, or the data that you didn't know is actually moving. The next section here is about vulnerability management. Now, I'm sure everybody here knows about vulnerability management and can boast that their organization has the best vulnerability management or they're 3 patch cycles behind, either or. And the reason why vulnerability management is important from the DSPM perspective, a data security perspective, is because with visibility with context and a high level of accuracy, we can identify where the data is sitting, where the most important data is sitting, and prioritize that for patching. Because from Qualys or Tenable, all databases look the same, but maybe one database has marketing material and one database has credit card information. You won't see that here. And to pull another statistic from Microsoft in their digital defense report, they reported that 98% of breaches, of the data breaches that they surveyed, occurred in environments with known vulnerabilities. And we've heard today about finding vulnerabilities in applications. But yeah, these are just the known vulnerabilities. We're behind on just the known vulnerabilities, not just the ones that where we can pen test for. So it's important to understand that we need to actually not just let the threat actors in. We need to put up a good defense, not just in the perimeter, but from the data security perspective as well. And lastly, we talk about identity intelligence insights. And again, this is taking from the visibility with context of posture management by making sure we know who has access to what and if what they have access to is important. Because people change roles in organizations, people get promoted, people leave. And if from the identity access management perspective, we see that, they still have access to an AWS Docker. That's okay. They probably still need it in their job. It's like, well, no, that AWS Docker has regulated information on it. They don't need that in their new role. We wouldn't know that from the IAM perspective. So looking at it from a data security perspective, we're giving them the context to understand that they have access to regulated data that they don't need anymore. And that's just one example from the intelligence insights, and I can keep going into other ones. But this also leads into our second section here, which is governance. And when we talk about governance, we talk about 3 different sections. And so that's third-party governance, data governance, and data security governance. So the first one here, third-party governance. Very, very important. And one of the reasons why it's so important is because, another statistic here, from the Microsoft Digital Defense Report, of this 82% of data breaches, of that 82% that occurred from users of privilege, 62% of the user of privilege attacks were from third parties. Just from third parties. So over half of those data breaches were from third parties. And that's really scary, mostly because you don't have control over your third party's security. You only have control over what they have access to in your environment or what you grant them access to. So think about all the supply chain attacks that happen. God forbid, the CrowdStrike attack was worse than what it was. But from our perspective, we can also see what data CrowdStrike has access to from the data security perspective, so that, God forbid, knock on wood, something happens, we can, where they're breached down the line, or your AP invoicing application was breached down the line, you can actually understand what data they have access to in your environment and what kind of access they have. Next, we have data governance. And at a very, very high level, for any DBAs out there, don't hate me, it's giving people the right access at the right time for the right purpose. And what we can basically do at a very high level is take your data catalog, knowing who has access to what and who's responsible for managing what, and turn those policies into rules. So think of like a SIM almost, turning those data governance policies and access controls into SIM-like use cases to be fired within a data security solution. And so that if access changes or someone attempts to modify a data table, we're able to see that as a fired rule within our data security solution. Or you need to think about if you can see that within your own data security solution. Is this something that you could do now? How are you tracking your data catalog or any changes to your data catalog? And then the last thing we can do here, what you should be looking for is what we like to call mask on the glass. And basically what this means is being able to redact and mask data that users don't really need to see. You know, maybe they need access to an application, but they don't need to see everything. And so being able to mask or redact that kind of data for certain users, you know, we're increasing access control. And you know, we're applying the principle of least privilege to the max extent here. And then lastly here, we are, you know, moving data governance, which would kind of sit with like DBAs or data custodians, maybe CTOs, depending on how large your organization is. We're moving that kind of data governance into the security kind of realm, because traditional security, you know, sits in a SOC. You have your analyst, you have your manager, and they all report to your CISO, but you know, data can be separate. We don't want that. We want that to be integrated, because data is the most important thing your organization needs to protect and is protecting. It's not just your assets. And lastly, we have data security governance. And what this specifically means from our perspective is compliance and auditing. That's what we're talking about here, data security governance. And that really sits in your auditing team, your risk and controls team, your compliance team, usually separate from security. They'll go to security and they're like demanding 10 weeks of logs, and then they'll leave you until like the next quarter. But we want to make sure that this is a continuous process that you can keep. You know, it's not just something that comes around once a quarter. And so what we've done here to improve compliance and auditing is through automation. And what I mean by automation is we're basically automating log reports. If we go back to the mountain analogy here, with this probing for information, we're able to produce automated reports based on compliance frameworks. So whatever you need to look for, like NERC-CIP, any kind of NIST, GDPR, PCI, HIPAA, whatever you need, we can automate this process of collecting logs and identifying more information that you may not have known in a previous audit report that you supplied logs for. And so what we've been able to do, proven, is an 89% reduction in the auditing workload. So in a traditional, and we contracted a third-party agency to test this claim, and they were able to, during a 12-week audit cycle, usually in the 12-week audit cycle, it takes about 10 weeks of work to pull all those logs, run all your Python scripts from your like your Oracle databases to make it look nice and legible for the auditors. They were able to reduce a 10-week workload to 1 week. And that was proven from their perspective. And so that's all great and everything. Compliance is awesome. We all love being compliant. And so the one thing that compliance is not, it's not proactive, it's just reactive. And so that's when the data detection and response comes in. And so the main purpose of data detection and response is to reduce mean time to exposure, mean time to respond. And we reported in our cost of a data breach report that mean time to respond was an average of 258 days. It's less than the previous year of 277 days, and that's 200 days to detect and 58 days to respond. It's close to a year. It's not great. It kind of sucks. And so it's unacceptable, you know, as a vendor looking at the industry like this. And so we wanted to do as much as we could to help clients detect and respond to data breaches. And so we've done this in 3 ways. I know I'm running out of time, so I'll go quick. So first is active threat analytics, basically giving us visibility of what our users are doing, these users of privilege, through data security use cases. So, you know, the data exfiltration, the attempted login failures, the modification of data tables. We're actively monitoring for that activity to see who is malicious and who is suspicious. But again, visibility is nothing without context. And so we then deploy risk scoring on these active threat analytics to understand who is the worst and who is the best, and also identify who could potentially cause a data breach. And then last but not least, for the identity access perspective, we kind of deploy something similar to Zero Trust. I know Zero Trust is another buzzword here, but we're focusing on the authenticating and authorization part of it, where normally when one of these users of privilege gets authenticated to access data at the front door, they're authenticated. They don't need to re-authenticate to access anything else. You know, when you unlock the front door, you can access every other door within the house. But using our real-time trust evaluator, we re-authenticating and reauthorizing users at every single data store. So we know that the person has the right access at the right time for the right thing for the right purpose. So, to recap very quickly, if you take anything from this presentation, take these things. These are our keys to data security success. First, it's visibility with context. It's the most important thing. Without context, your visibility is just white noise. So knowing what data is where that data is and where the most important data lies. Next, holistic governance controls, making data governance into an actionable use case that you can look for within your system. And then proactive response to threats. You know, that's not a new thing. You know, but from the data security perspective, no one wants to get plastered across the news because they were put on a ransomware extortion site. And so if you have any questions about anything I said today, or I know we're gonna have Q&A, or any questions on the actual IBM products that do this, I'll be here all weekend. And we have Jamie and Fumi here as well from IBM. So thanks, guys.
Questions? Questions for Mel?